Hi, welcome to Manas Shil YouTube channel. Before we start, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you. Let's start the video. If you haven't watched the previous video, I'll link it in the description box, or you can click here. Chapter 1, Walpurgis, Decision Making. After a few seconds, they looked at each other and said things like, no, that's, or it's scary that you would come up with such an idea. I wasn't saying this because I wanted to. It's just that I had come up with the possibility. Ramur-kun, do you think the probability of that happening is high? That's why, don't talk to me like that, as if to put the blame on me. I get it. So, what do you think? I'd try it, if I was them. If you fail, the only thing being wasted would be some of your undead elves. Well, I'd do that too. There's no point in having a bunch of weak minions. As Guy and I nodded at each other, the other demon lords looked at us, as if they were in shock. I don't understand why. I'm sure anyone would do that to increase their strength. Don't look at me like that. We don't actually know what's going on, but we should assume the worst, right? When I shouted this, opinions began to fly out, led by Raminas. That is true, however. You're still crazy. What scares me is that you think you can handle it, even if it happens. That's right, Ramur. The superior angels are the seraphim, but surely someone as powerful as Clayman could withstand their power. That would make them become as powerful as an awakened demon lord. If many beings like Dagrul are born, then we can't be too careful. At the very least, Luce and Gunther will have a tough time. It wasn't so much a complaint about me as it was a complaint about the difficulty of dealing with them. Gisan. Everyone seems to be unhappy. As the organizer, you should give them a good talking to. Hey, I told you not to use San in these situations, didn't I? We're all on equal footing here, okay? It wouldn't hurt for you to deal with it. Shut up. You're the one who's putting the con on me. In the first place, why do I have to draw the short straw? I shouted what I wanted to say without hesitation. Now that I felt refreshed and calm, I was okay with Guy, even though he scares me. It's not a problem. We'll just blow them all up. That's right. We even have Master Vildora here, so I don't think we have to be so scared. For this meeting, Millum and Rammus are always optimistic. They look so happy, it really is enviable. Incidentally, Vildora, the person Rammus is relying on, is probably reading the scriptures, manga, in another room. Recently, he's been reading a long historical work, saying that it might give him some great wisdom. I'm sure he'll come up with some kind of trap of justice, and it's going to be my job to figure it out, so I don't feel like getting my hopes up. Anyway, I'll just consider it a blessing not to be disturbed. The situation is not that simple. In addition to Velzer Dono, isn't Velgrin Dono in the hands of the enemy, as well? Even if we have the Vildora, the enemy will still have the advantage. In the first place, I don't like relying on that useless dragon. That's right. Vildora doesn't seem to be very reliable. He's too timid in front of his sisters, and he was also recently captured by the enemy. Velgrin-san is fine. I was letting my mind wander, so I answered absent-mindedly. Needless to say, that was a mistake. How can you be so sure? By the time I realized it, it was too late. I was planning to be more discreet with my information, but now that I'm here, I have no choice but to be honest. Due to various events in her fight against me, Velgrin-san has broken free from the ultimate dominion. And now that she no longer has the ultimate skill Charity King, Rigel, she doesn't have to worry about being controlled by Michael anymore. The only thing I can do now is play it cool. Well, it sure was difficult. I was so focused that, as soon as I realized it, I found myself in a good position to win. The suspicious looks I was getting from the demon lords was painful. However, if I lose here, then they'll probably make me confess everything. What the hell did you do? Surprisingly, even Guy is shocked. That's a trade secret, I must remain absolutely silent about my skill. It's hard to believe, so it would only rouse more suspicion. What's more, if Leon was actually under control, my power would be exposed to the enemy. I think I might be worrying too much, but this is the only decisive way to prevent that from happening. Tis. As always, you're full of baloney, stingy bastard. It's not a matter of being stingy. It's also a strategy. No, Dagrul aside, haven't we all experienced the evolution of a skill? I've never experienced anything like that. Yup, of course. Some troublesome points were made, but I will continue the explanation without paying attention to them. Velgrin-san was in a similar situation, and suddenly came to her senses during the fight against me. She said that Charity King, Rigel, evolved at that time. I gave a largely embellished explanation, but it seems that everyone understood what I meant. Well, I don't remember it either, but I think there was something like that. It's not unheard of for skills to evolve in the heat of battle. It's not normal, though. That was the case with me. Between life and death, I bet everything I had on my potential. As a result, I received the Purity King, Metatron, a decision I don't regret to this day. He seems to have been convinced in light of his own experience. That's a relief. If I pretend that I haven't heard about Velgrin's current powers, I'll be able to pretend that I don't know about the ultimate skill Divine Flame King, Katuga. As a matter of fact, Seal-san did it, so it's not my fault either. I thought the ultimate skill was the pinnacle, but I guess there is still further to evolve. I still have a ways to go. I guess I was too proud to think that this was my limit. He muttered, and the topic came to a close. Although I felt that this discussion was not moving forward very well, I reviewed it again. Identifying the enemy's forces is important, so we must not spare any effort. So, Velgrind is really okay now? Yeah. She's protecting chosen hero Masayuki now. Masayuki and I have a friendship, so we'll help each other out if the other gets in trouble. So then, they can be counted as an asset, or potential. I'm wondering if this is a selfish decision, but I'm sure they'll help us if we ask. Isn't it better just to avoid being hostile? At the least, I don't want to fight them again. You're right. It's not often that anyone can beat that thing, so you've done well. Now that Velzard has turned against us, we can't let Velgrin turn against us too. He looks annoyed, but I'm sure he means it. After all, half of the 7 of us here are unlikely to be able to take on a true dragon. The only ones who can are me, Dee, and Milim. Then next would be Dagrul after that. Anyway, it's good news if we can reduce the number of unnecessary enemies. Oh yeah, then there's one more thing. Since we're on the topic of Velgrind, I'll mention it here. Of the 7 primordial angels, there are 4 that have crossed over to the other world, including Feldway, but 3 of them attacked Ramrus's labyrinth. That's right. Of course, I was able to drive them away with my own strength. Ramrus nodded her head, as if my comment had reminded her. I quickly continued my explanation so as not to interrupt the conversation. Well, regardless of the truth of it, they call themselves Phantom King Feldway and his 3 Phantom Commanders. Yeah. They've been trying to destroy the humans of our world for since ancient times. We call them demons, but they're actually phantoms. I thought that all enemies of mankind were called demons, but I guess that wasn't the case. That said, one of the 3 Phantom Commanders was destroyed by Velgrin-san, so keep that in mind. I think it was Kornu, but it seems that he touched Velgrin's reverse scale when he taunted Masayuki. I sensed that Velgrin had gotten stronger, but even I was surprised that she was able to strike a blow against someone as strong as the 3 Phantom Commanders. However, that Kornu seemed to be less dominant than Zelario, let alone Feldway. That was my impression from the way Kornu behaved in the video recording. At the least, as a result of analyzing the information left in the labyrinth, Seal-san judged that Kornu was inferior to me in terms of strength, even though we were almost even in terms of existence value. The rationale behind this is unknown, but I trust them. Therefore, we should never underestimate our opponents, but there is no need to be wary of those who have perished. That's what I was reporting. Anyway, Kornu is probably dead. I've known him for a long time, but I don't feel anything for him. Guy laughed in an unconcerned tone. It's just nice to have fewer enemies. It was very much like Guy, so I tried to move on to the next report without any particular surprises. But then, Milim intervened. It's just the right time, so I have something to report. That's what she said, so I decided to listen to Milim. Actually, a bear, of the 3 Phantom Commanders, has offered to join me. The meeting was held in secret, so Feldway and the others should not have noticed. It's not that I let my guard down, but I was unable to react to the report. I was like, oh, I see. As expected of you, Milim. How'd you get her to do that? Yeah, let's hear it. A bear wasn't as narrow-minded as Kornu, and she was a very serious woman. I don't think she had anything to do with the betrayal, so how did it come about? Dee and I asked Milim in perfect synchronicity. Our eyes met, and that was enough for us to understand each other's thoughts. In other words, we were worried that Milim was being deceived. We nodded at each other. It's my natural charm. She came to me because she understood how great I was. It's hard being popular, Milim laughed, but I didn't take it for granted. Calm down. It could be the enemy's plan. He rebukes, but Milim doesn't listen. It's alright. A bear wasn't lying. Well, but you know, Milim, there is a very simple strategy called poison burial, which is introduced in the scriptures, manga, of the 3 kingdoms, and sending spies to the enemy camp has been a common practice since ancient times. Contacting us at this time, when we are about to start a war, is like asking us to be suspicious, isn't it? Right now, Bildor is reading about this. Now I'll be familiar with strategy, is what he said, but if it were that easy to train a military strategist, I wouldn't be having such a hard time. In the first place, his worldview is too different, so I think he's only useful as a reference. Anyway, it was suspicious, so I tried to persuade Milim. But Milim only smiled fearlessly. It's okay. I had my suspicions too, so I discussed it with Carrion and Free. And we all agreed that we should trust a bear. Well, Milm is not a fool, so she probably did what she had to do. If Carrion and Free Scent share the same opinion, then maybe we should trust them. What kind of discussion did you have with the bear? I asked for the time being. Well, that's after hearing Milm's story, we would make our own decision as well. I see, so a bear is monitoring the movements of Ivorage, the world-destroying dragon, in the Palace of Monsters. In that case, she can't afford to do anything either way. That was Guy's conclusion, after hearing Milm's story. Ivorage and the cryptid subordinates are a non-negotiable army of destruction. If a bear made a move, Ivorage might be resurrected, so they would normally be excluded from the invasion force. However, there was something that bothered me. If Feldway is willing to let the world die as a bear says, wouldn't he be willing to unleash Ivorage on us? Feldway and Michael are hoping that Valdenava will be resurrected, but it will be terrible if that doesn't happen. Hope will be lost, and a desire for destruction will arise. There is nothing more frightening than a man who does not care about the future. That's what I was thinking, but that's the point, Remur. I can't believe that idea. I thought it was a perfectly legitimate opinion, but surprisingly, it was very unpopular. Starting with Rumina's remarks, Dagrul also criticized me. That Feldway isn't stupid enough to use a monster that's stronger and more uncontrollable than he is. Oh ho, so Ivorage is stronger. It was dreadful back then. He took care, but I also helped to keep the planet from falling apart. Gahaha. Ivorage's destructive power can shatter the stars if he's not careful. If we fight him carelessly, we'll be in big trouble. If you can only destroy the enemy, then what would you to do after that? If this planet is destroyed, it will no longer be a matter of world domination. I see, I guess my assumption was too naive. From what I've heard about Ivorage, he seems to be a ridiculous monster. Wahaha. There's no shortage of opponents. If he comes out, I'll take care of him this time. Rejected. It's rejected. It's a rejection. Milm, I know you're strong, but you're not careful enough. I'm probably not the one who should be saying this, but you need to be more considerate of the damage you do to those around you. I've already learned how to do that. That's why Ivorage, but with a twist. Yes, I understand. Seriously though, if Ivorage does come back, I'll be the one to deal with him. I've been wanting to get rid of that bastard. Next time I get the chance, I'll definitely get rid of him. He proclaimed as such in a voice so cold it was frightening. Naturally, no one could argue with that. Milm was not happy, but she agreed to let Guy deal with Ivorage. Then, the conversation returned to a bear. Can't you ask her about the enemy situation or something? Dagrul asked Milm. I asked her, but she doesn't seem to know about the forces gained in our world. Feldway is suspicious, so she may have been wary of asking the wrong questions that might lead to false assumptions. Well, a bear is right. Feldway is a sharp man, and he doesn't like his subordinates to think too much. So, they're just supposed to do what they're told. I ask while thinking about my old troublesome boss. He answers me as I think nostalgically about the old days. Not exactly. If you're doing your best on a given mission, you don't have time to worry about others. That's just the way he thinks, and that's why a bear's response is correct. If she was trying to fool us, it would have been better to use false information to gain trust. Instead, she said she didn't know, which seemed to increase a bear's credibility even more. Even so, I don't think Feldway and I are going to get along. To be so self-righteous that he can't think of his subordinates as anything but pawns. He seems to believe that everything he does is right. And I can't help but spill my true intentions. Dee, who heard this, smiled at me. Is it a sarcastic remark meant for me? No, it's not. Yikes, how dangerous. Right here is a guy who's beyond just being self-righteous, he's dictatorial. In Guy's case, he doesn't even seem to consider the demons under his command as pawns. A careless remark like mine could very well bring out his fangs. I'll just cover it up and continue. For the time being, I'm more inclined to trust her, so I guess we'll wait and see. When I said that, everyone nodded. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy it.